CNN says vulnerable Democrats suddenly very concerned over inflation crisis. Oh, now inflation's the issue is an issue. Now all of a sudden, what does James Carville say? It's the economy, stupid, and that's true. It's the economy. People in their districts are suffering, and they know they're not going to get their vote now because people vote with their wallets, they vote with their dollars, and people are waking up to the mess of a party that the Democrats has, and they are worried about getting reelected and all of those things. So now they're trying to change their tune with the whole inflation stuff, which they have been denying for a while now. But before we get started, go ahead, hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon where I talk about things I can't talk about here. And there's also a link to my merch store. All right, let's talk about this news. Consider this concern a day late and about $1.9 trillion short. For the past year, the same Senate Democrats cited in CNN's report earlier this morning voted in lockstep for Joe Biden's inflationary American Rescue Plan. And when he first put this plan out there, I was saying from the very get-go, y'all can pull it up. I was saying from the very get-go that this plan is going to cause inflation. So they knew if someone like me, who all I do, I just read stuff. That's how I come up with this stuff. I read the information they put out there. So if someone like me that's just a psychotherapist knows this, you best believe they knew when they put this plan out there what this was going to cause. But the same Senate Democrats have spent the intervening 15 months admonitly carrying Biden's water on his blame shifting for inflation too. Now, however, political reality has belatedly dawned in places like Arizona, these swing states, Georgia, New Hampshire, all these swing states. They're like, wait a minute, inflation, people are suffering all of a sudden now. And CNN reports the cost of consumer goods has jumped to its highest point in 4 decades. But in some of the most important battleground races in the country, the situation is even more dire for Democrats who saw their constituents hit with price increases that were higher than the national average. So they're higher than the national. But I mean, I'm laughing because y'all voted for these people. Y'all voted for these policies, and this is what we get from it. But in Phoenix, Arizona, a state where Democrat Senator Mark Kelly is facing one of the toughest re-election races this fall, the cost of goods rose a whopping 12.3% from June 2021 to June 2022, according to the Labor Department. This over 3 points higher than the national average, which hit 9.1%. Crazy. Meanwhile, in the Atlanta metro area, which is represented by vulnerable Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock, costs climbed 11.5% over the same period. The latest inflation numbers, particularly in key swing states that could determine control of the Senate, brought into focus the deepening political problems for Joe Biden and his party, and explain why vulnerable Democrats have publicly rung the alarm about the issue. Democrats, desperate to retain control of Congress, are now pleading with the administration and their party leadership to help them more forcefully combat rising prices and in the process hang on to their seats. So they're begging like, Biden, please do something about these horrible policies that you have. You're killing my constituents and they're not going to vote for me. Please help me. But all of this could have been prevented if he didn't roll back Trump policies, if he didn't get rid of the tax cuts and he pumped more oil and we stayed oil independent. It was a whole bunch of things that he did that was opposite, just to spite Trump. Just to spite Trump and his policies, he got rid of all of them, and now we're suffering from it. How odd that these vulnerable Senate Democrats have found their voice now. Inflation has been running away for well over a year, and it hasn't been below 7% year on year in the consumer price index since late last year. And I've been blasting them since late last year. Again, let's remind everyone just how long it's taken for these incumbents to start talking about how, quote, families are finding it hard to afford a lot of things, as Mark Kelly has apparently just learned. Like all of a sudden, like inflation didn't just pop out of nowhere. We've been warning, we've been warning, we've been warning. So why now? Isn't this transitory or real growth or Putin's price hike or Republican obstruction anymore or or most recently out of date? And that was ridiculous on the face of it. Those numbers are out of date. What do you mean out of date? Those were the most recent numbers that we got. Those numbers, they compared it from last year of June to the end of June. You didn't have the numbers until the end of June. I mean, they're full of crap. I don't care how they try to spin it, but it's not working. None of that messaging is working, clearly. And neither is the White House stay the core strategy on economic and energy policies. And these frontline Democrats know it, even if they're admitting it far too late. Unfortunately, these incumbents are every bit as empty as Biden on what to do about it. Kelly tells CNN that he wants Biden to continue emptying the strategic petroleum reserve, which has perhaps taken the edge off the price hikes, but is only a short-term patch. And I think it amounted to about $10 a month, maybe, if that. It really doesn't amount to anything. Warnock wants the federal gas tax holiday as well as a cap on insulin prices, the former of which is a nonsense gimmick that will spike demand in the short run while saving individuals very little cash, but hammer Biden's funding for his infrastructure program. Maggie Hassan has a more Biden criticism of the White House. Maggie says some Democrats are starting to point the finger at one another. New Hampshire Senator Maggie Hassan, a vulnerable Democrat, criticized the Biden administration handling of inflation, telling CNN, quote, I have said for a while that I thought he and the administration have been too slow to react to it. Well, you haven't been loud about it because I've never heard you say anything about that. Inflation may not be the worst of it come election day, however. The Federal Reserve will launch big hikes in the prime interest rates, hoping to seriously cool off demand. That will have a major and direct impact on consumer spending on major ticket items, and in fact, may already have. Home builders' confidence has dropped precipitously this month, even for the new buildings that tend to get impacted last. Confidence among builders in the nation's single-family housing market fell in July to the lowest level since the start of the pandemic. The National Association of Home Builders Wells Fargo Housing Market Index, a survey designed to gauge market conditions, found builder sentiment dropped 12 points to 55. That marked the largest single month drop in the survey in its 37-year history, with the exception of April 2020, when the reading plummeted 42 points to 30 after the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Any rating above 50 on the index is still considered positive, but sentiment has now fallen 24 points since March, when mortgage rates began moving higher. The average rate of the 30-year fixed mortgage has nearly doubled since January and is now hovering just below 6%. It's crazy. Sentiment stood at 80 in July of last year after hitting a record high of 90 in November 2020, when the pandemic sparked a rash of home buying among people looking for more space in less urban areas. Now, concern about inflation and recession are among the factors that are taking a toll on builder sentiment. With the Biden administration doing little to even admit that its policies have created this inflationary wave, let alone do anything about it, the Fed's left holding the bag to deal with it through monetary policy alone. That is a sledgehammer approach rather than a surgical. And the longer inflation keeps going, the bigger the chances of a major recession as its cure becomes. Hardly anyone thinks a soft landing for inflation is possible now. The only question when the recession will hit, how deep will it go and how long will it last? And I'm gonna be honest with you, I think we're in a recession already. If it hits before November, I mean, by hit, I mean if they actually admit it in November, there will be a lot more vulnerable Democrats all over the ballot. But even if the recession waits until next year, we are very likely to enter a stagflation period if we haven't already entered it, which I think we have. We're in stagflation right now. Globally and in the US, um, momentum on consumer activity in other parts of the economy appears to be faltering. Wage erosion is increasing, and capital investors will likely shelter in the coming Fed storm rather than put their money to work. The political consequences of inflation, stagflation, will be unavoidable for Democrats in 3 months, simply because they walked the U.S. into it, and everybody knows it. The political consequences from recession will be even worse. That's why these vulnerable Senate Democrats have stopped carrying Biden's water and are getting a lot more vocal about Biden's need to do something fast. But I mean, Biden will never admit his policies is doing this. So we're not going to get to the root, which means we're not going to get to the root cause of the problem, which means nothing is going to happen except for the economy is going to get a lot worse. But let me know what you think. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and check out themarkrepublics.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace. Oh,